Luffy's devil fruit could have deep connections to the ancient history and explain the betrayal of Alabasta. Its awakening abilities could be a monstrous power that can change the world, and I think we're going to be seeing these abilities very soon in the manga. So in this video, we're going to be talking about the new information about the Gomu Gomu no Mi, talk about how it explains the history and origin of the devil fruit, and also what new terrifying abilities Luffy could awaken. As always, if you guys enjoy content like this, make sure you subscribe and join our King Pirates crew. And if you have a good time watching this video, please hit that like button for the YouTube algorithm. Thank you. Alright, so with the drop of the newest One Piece chapter, I had to make a video talking about Luffy's devil fruit, because the most recent chapter pretty much just confirmed my beliefs that Luffy's devil fruit is the special devil fruit that the Gorosei were talking about. To really give you guys the full picture and my whole thought process, I'm gonna break down all the info that we have, and we're actually gonna start off at the beginning with the most basic information that we know, which is that the Gomu Gomu no Mi translates to the Gum Gum fruit. And this, I think, is actually the first important point that we should focus on, because it's actually a little weird when you really think about it, because throughout the story, Luffy's devil fruit has always been connected to rubber. They've always referred to him as a rubber man, and all of his abilities have always been connected to rubber. So the fact that his devil fruit is the Gum Gum fruit as opposed to the rubber fruit feels a little surprising at the very least. So this is something to keep in mind when we talk about the origins of Luffy's devil fruit and also what abilities he could awaken. More importantly though, let's talk about where the devil fruit came from, which before Luffy, it belonged to Shanks. And for a long time, we thought this was no big deal. It was just merely a coincidence that Shanks had that devil fruit. After all, over 1,000 chapters deep into the story, we had never gotten any hints that Luffy's devil fruit was special. But as it turns out, that's not the case, because just recently, Who's Who dropped a truth bomb on us. While he was fighting Jinbei and blabbing away his whole life story, we found out he was a former CP9 member, and on top of that, he had actually guarded a world government ship that had the Gomu Gomu no Mi. Ultimately, he ended up losing that fruit to the red hair pirates, and that's why he lost his job. And thanks to the Viver cards, we also have some additional information about that incident, which is that Lucky Roo was the one that specifically stole the devil fruit. Now personally, I don't think that detail is that important. It's kind of just some additional information, but I guess it does prove that Lucky Roo is an absolute monster, in case you didn't believe that in the first place. But yeah, as it turns out, the Gomu Gomu no Mi was not just some regular old devil fruit that we thought it was, because not only was it in the possession of the world government, but more importantly, Shanks went out of his way to steal it. And to me, when we found out about this information, that was actually the more important element, because for Shanks to go out of his way to attack the world government and steal this devil fruit, that's a pretty big deal. As we've seen in the story, Shanks is a pretty chill dude. Most of the time, he's just drinking it up with his buddies, and whenever he does take action, it's because someone hurt his friend or that he's actually trying to keep peace. As a matter of fact, I've always viewed Shanks as a pacifist, a person that's trying to keep the balance in the world, so much so that he's even on respectable terms with the world government. So for him to initiate an attack on the world government goes to show how important that devil fruit is. So with this Who's Who information, we can confirm that the Gomu Gomu no Mi is at least meaningful to the world government, but probably even more so to Shanks. But even despite that information, I will admit at the time, I still didn't think that Luffy's devil fruit was that important. Many people started discussing crazy theories, like maybe it was Joy Boy's fruit, or maybe it's like the original devil fruit. But personally, I just didn't think so, and in my opinion, it was a devil fruit more important to Shanks as opposed to the world government. Because the way I looked at it, if the devil fruit was really that important to the world government, they're not just gonna have CP9 members guarding it. At the very least, they should have some CP0 members guarding it, and if it was really that important, like Joy Boy's devil fruit, I'd imagine they sent some admirals too. So on the world government side, I didn't think they placed enough emphasis on it. Plus, there's the fact that throughout the entire story, they didn't put that much pressure on capturing Luffy, even though they knew he had the devil fruit. So in my opinion, the devil fruit seemed a lot more important to Shanks, who did something really out of character just to get it. And essentially, my theory was that the origin of the Gomu Gomu no Mi was connected to Shanks' mysterious backstory. Whether it was someone that he knew before that had the devil fruit, or it was just meaningful to him in some way. Either way, I thought that although this meant that Gomu Gomu no Mi had a special origin, it didn't mean it was a special devil fruit with special abilities. Because to be honest, I never liked and still don't really like the idea of Luffy having this one-of-a-kind devil fruit. But of course, with the new information in the recent chapters, it's become pretty obvious that Luffy's devil fruit is actually special. First off, a few chapters back, we had this conversation from the Gorosei where they talk about a devil fruit, and not only do they talk about it being a legend, but they specifically talk about how it has not been awakened for centuries. And on top of that, they also mentioned that the world government changed the name of this devil fruit. Now personally, when I first saw this, I did believe that they were referring to Luffy. A lot of people at the time thought they were talking about Zunisha, which is completely understandable because immediately after that conversation, we see Zunisha. But for me, besides the visual connection, the conversation just didn't really seem like it matched Zunisha. And that's because out of everything we've learned about Zunisha so far, there's never been any setup or foreshadowing about it having a devil fruit. But on the other hand, there was a clear connection to Luffy's devil fruit because just recently we found out that information from Who's Who. So that was one major reason why why I thought they were referring to Luffy's devil fruit. But on top of that, there were two other factors as well. First off, there's the fact that they specifically talked about awakening, which I think is something that's been building up for Luffy. Before coming into Wano, the last two major opponents for Luffy were Katakuri and Doflamingo, and in both of those fights, Luffy saw first-hand devil fruit awakening, and not only were both of those Paramecia awakenings, but Katakuri's fruit is pretty much a direct replica of Luffy's fruit. So based off of that alone, it was clear to me that Oda was building towards Luffy awakening, but the nail in the coffin for me that Luffy was definitely going to awaken in Wano was when Law and Kid also awakened, because with them always being portrayed as Luffy's rivals, once they did it, I knew that Luffy also had to do it. I know that even without awakening, Luffy's probably still stronger than both of them just with Haki. I just can't imagine either of them having a leg up on Luffy in any way for a long period of time. So when we saw Law and Kid awaken against Big Mom, I became pretty certain that Luffy's gonna awaken against Kaido. So the fact that the Gorosei specifically talked about Devil Fruit awakening and kind of teased it like it hasn't happened in centuries, that to me signaled that we're gonna see this Devil Fruit awaken for the first time in centuries. And the next main character that I think is gonna awaken his Devil Fruit is Luffy. So that in itself was another connection. And then finally, there's also the name change, which kind of fits Luffy as well. As I mentioned earlier, it's kind of weird that Luffy's fruit is actually the Gum Gum fruit, so it could be a Devil Fruit that had its name changed. I know this point is not a strong argument, but it feels strong enough to me to be like an extra hint. So overall, when I saw that conversation from the Gorosei, I was pretty certain that I was wrong and that Luffy's Devil Fruit is actually special. And of course, in the most recent chapter, that was pretty much confirmed to be the case, because the Gorosei have given the CP0 a new mission of eliminating Straw Hat Luffy, which is an absolutely insane mission because Luffy is fighting Kaido right now. The mission was so crazy that the CP0 guy did a double take and said, wait, are you serious? So that sense of urgency plus the fact they were talking about rumors lines up with the conversation they had before. But that brings us to the question of what exactly changed and what is motivating the Gorosei to be this urgent, because Luffy has literally had this Devil Fruit since the beginning of the story and the world government has known that. Up until now, we've got no hints that Luffy's Devil Fruit is special or any sense of urgency from the world government. So what exactly changed to make them this urgent? And personally, I've come up with two guesses, with the first one being that maybe just recently they saw something special. So perhaps as they're getting reports from Onigashima, they hear about something Luffy did, which hints that he might be awakening soon. But at the same time, I don't think Luffy has done anything like that yet. Of course, he's made major strides in power, but all of it has been related to Haki. The one weird thing that might be an exception is the voice of all things, but we've seen other people with that ability that don't have the Gomu Gomu no Mi. So this option I'm a little iffy with, and I definitely feel stronger about the second one, which is that for some reason they didn't know about the importance of the Gomu Gomu no Mi until now. Instead, all they knew about were rumors about this legendary Devil Fruit that hadn't awakened in centuries, and now for some reason they're connecting the dots to Luffy. And to me, this option makes a lot more sense because first off, it lines up with them not placing that much emphasis on the fruit and not being urgent about Luffy until now. The only confusing thing is why they wouldn't know about it, because the Gorosei seem to be one of the only people that know everything, and even if they specifically didn't know about it, you'd expect Imu to know, so in that case, why are they in the dark? So once again, we need to speculate here to get to the truth, and once again, I have two options that could explain the origin of Luffy's Devil Fruit. And the first option is Imu knows about it, but for some reason just wants to bury it and wants nobody to find out more about it. Perhaps that could have been the reason it was being transported, maybe to simply destroy it. And with this one, we could definitely go crazy with the theories, like maybe it was related to God Valley or that Roger told Shanks to steal the fruit. But in order not to get sidetracked, I'm not going to talk about any of the crazy headcanon theories, but instead the main point I want to focus on with this option is that this is a Devil Fruit that Imu wanted nothing to do with and told no one about. And also Imu probably believed that no one can actually awaken this Devil Fruit and use its abilities, which would explain why they didn't tell the Gorosei about it and there's been no sense of urgency against Luffy until now. So essentially with option one is just ignorance from Imu, which is completely believable because they are the king of the world that could do whatever they want. But I do have a second theory that's a little more interesting, which is that something was done outside of the world government's control to conceal the Devil Fruit's identity. For example, maybe changing the name of the Devil Fruit was something done by the Great Kingdom and Joy Boy, and it was done so early on and so discreetly that even Imu and the Gorosei don't know about it. Now you might be wondering how exactly they might have done this, because the Gorosei specifically say that the world government themselves changed the name. Well, in that case, how about one of the original 20 world government kingdoms that eventually seemingly switched sides? And the kingdom I'm talking about is of course Alabasta, who was one of the original 20 world government kingdoms, but eventually they not only left the world government but also received a pretty important poneglyph from the Great Kingdom. So to me, it's pretty clear that Alabasta switched sides, but we just never knew the reason why. Well, what if they were given a mission to infiltrate the world government to disguise the Gomu Gomu no Mi? So they end up joining the world government, changing the name of the Gomu Gomu no Mi to protect it, and because of that, through the past 800 years, the world government never knew it was this legendary Devil Fruit, fruit, and eventually the fruit is stolen from them by Shanks, maybe on the orders of Roger because he found out about it on Laugh Tale, and it isn't until now that the Gorosei are connecting the dots that Luffy's fruit is that legendary fruit. Overall, this theory is probably the most interesting one to me because it kind of works in Alabasta as well, but I do think both options that I mentioned are possibilities, and even more likely, I'm probably just completely wrong on this. But the one thing I am pretty certain of at this point is that Luffy's fruit is definitely connected to ancient history. I'm not gonna say for sure it's Joy Boy's fruit or anything like that because we just don't know, but I do think the awakening abilities of Luffy's fruit is gonna be monstrous. Personally, I think it might even be needed for the mission that the new Joy Boy has to accomplish. The same mission that's also gonna involve Poseidon and the Noah's Ark, and maybe even Zunisha, who might also be an ancient weapon. So with that said, let's talk about what these crazy awakening abilities could be that can completely change the world and completely freak out the world government. And well, to be honest with you guys here, this is where I'm a little stumped. See, although at this point I'm very certain that Luffy's awakening is going to be special, I think based off of everything we've seen with his devil fruit, it has to be related to rubber. So I don't think his awakening abilities is just going to be something completely different because that would be kind of weird. Also, Luffy's fruit is kind of tied to his identity. He always bounces back. So whatever his special ability is still going to fit within his combat style and be similar to everything we've seen. And up until now, I've done a number of awakening videos for Luffy, and my number one idea has always been Rubber World. It's a very safe answer that a lot of people have already talked about, and I think it's the most logical one. I honestly still think part of Luffy's awakening powers will include this, because in my opinion, it'd be kind of weird if it didn't have it. It kind of goes against logic. Don't get me wrong, Paramecia is definitely a very weird category of devil fruits that can go in any direction, but from the Paramecia awakenings we've seen so far, there have been similarities like affecting the environment. And with Katakuri's fruit specifically, it's so similar to Luffy's, Luffy should also be able to affect his environment in the same way. And as I've said before, although it's a pretty basic answer, I do think it's a pretty powerful ability. I do think a lot of people sleep on its potential of Luffy being able to really dominate his environment and the battlefield, because instead of only using his own body to generate speed and momentum and power, he can now also do the same thing with his surrounding environment to boost his ability. On top of that, there's also the theory that it perfectly counters Blackbeard's Guru Guru no Mi, so that's a nice little bonus argument that is gonna happen. But at the same time, now that it's been pretty much confirmed that Luffy's awakening abilities will be special, I don't imagine the Rubber World effect to be the only thing. Like, I think the Rubber World ability will definitely help Luffy, but I don't think it's this crazy ability that has the Gorosei freaking out. Like, if Luffy awakened and that's all he did, I'd imagine the Gorosei would just be like, oh no. Anyways, so yeah, Luffy's awakening I'd expect to be much more dangerous, and I still think that its abilities is going to contribute to something the Gorosei and the world government don't want to happen. Now, to figure that out, we'd really have to deep dive into some endgame theories, and there are just so many possibilities. I will say one of the ones I've always liked is the destruction of the Red Line to unite all the seas, because not only would that create the all blue for Sanji, but it also goes hand in hand with the destruction of Fishman Island, and just in general, it just really fits the One Piece theme of freedom, letting everyone explore without any borders. So I guess if Luffy's awakening were to contribute to that, it would need to be strong enough to literally destroy the Red Line. At the same time though, maybe that's the purpose in the ancient weapons, like that could be what Pluton is used for. And also these days, the majority of Luffy's power just comes from his haki. So I guess if his devil fruit is really gonna elevate his power, it has to complement his haki. Perhaps as a way to elevate Gear 4th, allowing him to compress his haki even more to deal more damage. Combining that together with how he's able to manipulate the environment to generate more momentum, speed, and power, that could be enough along with Luffy's haki to destroy the Red Line. But like I said guys, I'm just being honest here. With this one, I'm really kind of stumped. There's definitely a few possibilities that I'm thinking of, but none of them that I feel very strongly about that I'm like, aha, this has to be it. Like even with the theories I discussed earlier about the origins of Luffy's devil fruits, I know that it's still very likely that I'm probably wrong, but I feel kind of good about them being a possibility. With Luffy's awakening powers, the only one I feel good about is the Rubber World, and I don't think that's going to be his main ability. So this is where you guys, the King Pirates crew, have to come in and help me. Comment your best theories down below. The reason I started this channel in the first place was to have conversations like this, so I definitely want to hear your thoughts. But that's gonna be it for me in this video. Thank you guys for watching. Go get yourself some One Piece manga with the link in the description, and let's just do a simple game of rock, paper, scissors. If you lose, you have to like, subscribe, and watch the next video. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot!